So welcome everyone to Sacred Anarchy. So we might find that an interesting combination of words. I've discovered it's not a common one. It's kind of come about through the heart practice. So we find that when we do a lot of heart practice and that let the heart draw us in and rest here more and more, that whatever spiritual tradition we were already drawn to, or maybe brought up with, we find more and more depth in it. And it kind of shines out in a way and shows us things that we maybe didn't see in it before. And I was quite surprised to find that applied to anarchism, which I hadn't thought of as a spiritual tradition before. Had I? Maybe I had a bit, but some things just sort of like popped out all of a sudden going, hello, you know, we're here. And as someone asked yesterday what I'd studied, and I did, in my quest for a deeper understanding of who I am and how to be free, I wrote a 100,000 word long prayer on sex and anarchy. Because I wanted to understand how to live together in harmony, even though we have, and how to deal with all these little boxes that everybody was being put in, or we were putting ourselves in, and how all those boxes were being, oh, that's the good box and that's the not so good box, like we were talking about last night. The good list and the naughty list, the Santa Claus version of the universe. I think Santa Claus actually is just all kindness, and he's been terribly misinterpreted. Yeah. Terribly. So apologies to Santa Claus. Yeah. Gosh, we've already covered a lot, haven't we? So I went out and I listened to people, because I didn't know another way other than, the category kind of politics. Oh, there's us and, all that. And people told me really beautiful and often painful, heart-wrenching stories about their experiences of all of these divisions in our system, in our society. Again, like we talked about last night. And what really struck me was all the beautiful creativity and love that went into following the people I was talking to, finding their own way to be themselves, to not follow along neat little lines that have been laid out for them. Yeah. And I wasn't intending to write about anarchy as well as sex. That seemed a bit, probably bonkers. But then I found some things that it all kind of came together and made so much sense. And I found myself defining or understanding, I guess the definition came to me of anarchy as the art of relating freely as equals. But there's a skill in that and a capacity that can be nurtured. And that seemed a bit different from most of the people I talked to who also maybe called themselves anarchists, where it seemed, there's an enemy to be defeated and then victory, and then we can live together in harmony. Or let's focus on the world issues, and well, if we have trouble getting along, to deal with that in the process, yeah, never mind. And I was like, no, it's that getting along together. If that's not happening in the groups that are trying to help the world, then the effect of that is going to be felt. So I kind of moved away from all those things. And ironically, I was trying to put my own life in neat little boxes. Well, I was an anarchist, and now I'm a yogi. I used to wear black, and now I wear white. They used to joke at the anarchist book fair about the uniform, because pretty much everyone was wearing black. I think I did go one year after I became a yoga teacher, and I did do some kind of workshop that involved meditation. I don't think I was brave enough to wear all white though. Maybe I would now, who knows? Anyway, so if anarchy is the art of relating freely as equals, and as we discussed earlier, advanced yoga is when a small group of people can live together in harmony. Ding ding, same, huh? Just like we saw with Hildegard, that her teachings were so similar to the Native American traditions. That all the great spiritual traditions point to the same place. And so it's really fascinating to me to start seeing anarchy as a great spiritual tradition, or anarchism as a great spiritual tradition. And then Hildegard comes along, waving, hello, I've come to help. How can I be of service? She's like that. And it just the other day, it dawned on me that Hildegard was a major influence on Meister Eckhart, who you might have heard of. Eckhart Tolle borrowed his name as in honor. And he was a beautiful German mystic. Again, there's some gorgeous books about his work, and some people have taken his poetry and redone it, and lovely, lovely voice of the divine. And Meister Eckhart is a major influence on Gustav Landauer. You won't be quizzed. And he was a major inspiration for my work on anarchism. Because he was kind of like me. He said the states, or I was kind of like him, I don't know. Anyway, we had a good chat. And he said the state isn't an enemy to be defeated. It's not an object that you can make go away just because it hurts. And, you know, often we can see around the world examples of states not being the embodiment of the values we might love to see. He said that big pattern is made up of lots of little patterns. The state is a relationship. And if we want to change the world, if we want to live in utopia together, if we want to live freely, then we change the way we relate to ourselves, to each other, to the earth, to the divine. And the root of all our relationships is our relationship. Well, we might say the root of all our relationships is the relationship with ourselves. So when I came along and found Heart of Living Yoga, or Heart of Living Yoga found me, and I was sure I didn't want a teacher who I really followed a lot, because, you know, I was working it all out in my head. I was very grateful Ashtanga Yoga had no spiritual teachings. I was like, great, just I'll sweat and I'll bend and it'll be okay. But then I found a tradition that was even more radical than, you know, than I was, we might say, and radical in its gentleness, which, well, still discovering the radical depths of gentleness. Yeah. And this emphasis on radical self-care in the tradition, on deeply, deeply nourishing ourselves. So that nourishment naturally spreads through what Hildegard called the web of life. I don't know if she was the only one to say that. She might have been the first. To spread out through all our relations, to honor them all by pouring into here. letting this light shine bright. And then you could imagine a great web. And if each person is a node, and any node lights up, and all the little threads that come out from that node to all the other nodes, that light just pours down those threads, and it all lights up. Huh? And that's how the world changes. That's how the world is, in a way. If we go the other way and try to get the other nodes to light up, boy, you could be brighter. Why don't you do this? Let me, like that. Then, well, maybe it doesn't have the same effect. If anyone's experimented along those lines, we may have noticed those results for ourselves. So this great honoring of our life force, of that vitality that Hildegard speaks of so beautifully, is a great way to honor the earth, to honor the divine, and to be of service to society. All in one go. That seems pretty radical to me, when we understand radical means going to the roots. Doesn't mean being extreme or outrageous or obvious. It means really getting to the real roots. So I then saw that Hildegard, so we've seen she's a grandmother of anarchy, in a way, influencing Meister Eckhart, who influenced Gustav Landauer. And she spoke in a way that's very similar to some of the things that the anarchists talk about herself. And she said, we cannot live in a world that is not our own, in a world that is interpreted for us by others. An interpreted world is not a home. Part of the terror, why we tremble inside, is to take back our own listening, our own voice, our own light. So we can see that web, that network, and that light. But also what some of the anarchists call the indignity of speaking for others. That trying to make decisions for other people without really involving them, without really listening. There's an indignity in that. And I always like to turn things around to the positive. So I switched it up and said, let's talk about the dignity of listening. Or even better, experience the dignity of listening. Listening to that voice within. And listening to other people where they're at. Not where we would quite like them to be, so life was easier for us, as tempting as that is. But listening to what's really happening for them. And when we listen from the heart, when we're in the only place we probably really can listen, truly, because if we're in the mind, we're listening with some background noise. Like, oh, what would be a good answer to that? How can I fix it? Oh, that happened to me too. What's the right question to ask next so they say what I want to know about? And that's all okay. People have wonderful conversations that way. Amazing things happen that way. But I also noticed that was what was getting in the way. of the anarchy that I was looking for, or the liberation I was looking for in the name of anarchy. And that when we're in the quiet of the heart, in that stillness that's open to everything, and deeply compassionate, and compassion in the sense of being able to be with the pain without being in it, not empathy in pain. Oh, you hurt, I'll hurt too, in solidarity. That's very popular in anarchist circles too. And in all circles, we kind of might get pulled in. And there's a sweetness behind that, of course, a kindness. And if we go deeper into the sweetness and the kindness, then we're kind to ourselves as well. And our heart holds us so we're not pulled in. Yeah. So that's one level or way in which that's speaking for others and the interpreted world, when other people are trying to put an idea across. And I found a really beautiful quote, let's see if I have it here, from Adyashanti, who was talking about Jesus as a revolutionary mystic. And I think I might have too many different sets of notes and I misplaced it. Yeah, I did. Where he was talking about social conditioning and how we get conditioned to fit into society's expectations, but that the wild spirit within is not interested in that. Who we really are is not interested in conforming for the sake of conforming, nor rebelling for the sake of rebelling, because it's the same thing. It's the flip side. There's a popular philosopher, well, popular in very certain circles, called Foucault, who said, you know, you only rebel against authority if you believe in it. So if you're believing the theater that there is an object that's making things happen a certain way, then you might rebel against it if you don't like it, and you might obey it if you're afraid. And if you know that it's just a pattern and a light show and not really how the world runs, then you're not bothered about it. That whole drama can play out. But I mentioned something about Boris Johnson the other day, and then someone started telling me all about his family, and I was like, oh, wow. And I found myself saying, I'm sorry, I don't watch the soap opera. I've heard about some of the main characters, but I don't know the details. You know, we don't have to get drawn into any particular theater of what counts as politics, or what counts as economics, or what we're presented as how the world is, and be realistic. Because that's not reality. It's an idea of reality. It's an interpretation. It's not home. It's not the real world. And we discover the reality of how the world works when we listen, when we tune into what's beyond the words, beyond the images, beyond the interpretation, and beyond our mental interpretation. When, you know, again, we talked about last night, when we're judging or deciding in advance, this means that. Oh, I saw that's a sign that is definitely like that. Like my recent adventures in housing. Oh, look. I heard a voice say, ask Elspeth. Elspeth said, talk to M. M's the one who's going to sort us all out. Oh, wait, no. Oh, wait, Loretta got in touch. Oh, that's the one that's going to sort us all out. Oh, no, no, okay. You know, we're like we can be so desperate for certainty. Great. And the universe is so kind. It says, oh, darling, that's not how we flow. That's not how we really live. That's not how our vitality shines. It's through listening to the moment and tuning into what's here and not trying to put the universe in a box, not trying to put ourselves in a box, but by flowing free. And we feel that in Hildegard's music. We hear it in her beautiful speeches and writing about the Viriditas, about this flow of energy, the sacredness of creation. That it's not something to be controlled. It's something to be tuned into and worked with and honored and loved. I found again a similar link between Christianity, yoga, and anarchism. To my ongoing surprise. Because there's in this talk of concepts and of putting the world in boxes, there's a great prayer in yoga that says, lead us from unreal to real. Lead us from darkness to the light. Yeah. Lead us from the concept and looking at the world through, is that one of those and that one of those, and right, got it, great. I know where I'm at. Phew. Oh, it changed. That's a wibbly wobbly place to try to stand. That's hard work. And to the simplicity of being in the heart and tuning in. And you might not be surprised to move on to the anarchists. You might not be surprised to hear that many people in the anarchist tradition have gotten very angry with God because the church hasn't always been an embodiment of divine qualities. And one of the anarchists was a bit spot on, I think, pointed out, this guy, Max Stirner. He was a yogi. He said the concept of God has to be destroyed. But it is not God who is the enemy. It is the concept. And Saint Teresa of Avila said the same thing. The same thing. She said all concepts of God are like a jar we break. Because only the infinite can contain perfect love. And this love is the root of all traditions, including the anarchist one. It's not always talked about, and it's certainly not what's shown on TV. And from way before TV, one of my great heroes in the anarchist tradition is a woman called Emma Goldman. And she moved to America at a very young age from Lithuania. So, and the story was, liberation is waiting here for you. Turned out exploitation was on offer instead. Young immigrant woman, working in clothing factories and a midwife and a wide variety of jobs. And a lot of the immigrant laborers were like, boy, this wasn't the deal. And they got together, and a lot of them were inspired by anarchist and socialist traditions. And she, fell in with those people and thought that makes sense, to be equal, to really be equal. And what really took her deep into that, and she just describes this, and I missed it before, but she describes this as the birth of her spiritual growth. Had this blossoming, this kind of awakening moment, was when after a very peaceful rally, saying, 8 hours of work is enough in a day. You can't keep asking more. And they said it in a supremely gentle way. And apparently even the mayor of town went to the rally just to check, are they all right? And saw that it was fine and went home. There was nothing to worry about. But then they were asked to stop by the police, because the police got word from the ones who paid their salaries, who happened to own the factories as well. And the police started marching on them and coming close. And while the organizers were dedicated to peace and had that great depth of peace in their hearts, not everyone in the crowd did. And a homemade bomb was thrown, and some police died. And they had no idea who did it. But someone had to pay, they thought. And the anarchists were targeted, very peaceful anarchists, and actually were hung. Yeah. So this is the 1800s, late 1800s. Yeah. And they were called martyrs, and recognized as such. And that was kind of the birth of the Red Scare. And this fear that anything that isn't our dominant tradition is dangerous. So the love of the anarchist tradition has been very invisible, and even often among members. But that Gustav Landauer, who I mentioned before, also he spoke very powerfully of love and of how we shift those relationships. And we could say it's shifting from fear to love. That the state as a pattern is really the ego writ large, as Eckhart Tolle says, that trying to control things. And Gustav Landauer said there is yet another way to feel the infinite, the most splendid of them all. I speak of love. Love is such a wonderful and universal feeling, a feeling that spins us round and elevates us to the stars, because it is a cord that connects our childhood with the universe. Love sets the world alight and sends sparks through our being. It is the deepest and most powerful way to understand the most precious that we have. We might say the preciousness that we are. In our society, we tend to think of knowledge as living upstairs. And just, if we could read all the books and all the websites that have ever been written, it wouldn't even be the tiniest fraction of what's known in the heart. Libraries and websites are great. Books are fantastic. They can be a great support. And they can also help us come closer to direct source of wisdom. I kind of suspect Hildegard von Bingen might be Saraswati reincarnated, kind of goddess of wisdom, creativity, music, the arts. And these times that we're in are really calling for creativity. It's when we have a good challenge that our creative juices can really get going. Unless we feel overwhelmed by the challenge and decide to go a bit dormousey and just, no, I don't think that's for me. Actually, that must be for someone else. But there's us on earth. Yeah. Sometimes, some people, I think, I really like the way they've said this. Let's look at anarchy not as leaderless, but leaderful. That everyone shining in their own way offers leadership in the sense of inspiring people to do their thing in their way. And it's both, and to cooperate, to work together, and everyone adding their bit to the pot, so that beautiful ways of responding to the challenges that we face can come about. And, you know, one of the charges against anarchism, I guess, is that it's unrealistic, that you know, it sounds nice, of course, but that can't really work, can it? And no matter how many examples from history are provided, you know, like in Argentina, when the economy collapsed and the factory owners left and the factory workers were like, well, we're here, the factory's here, people still need stuff. They got together and worked it out and made decisions together. They called it horizontalism. And the tile factory would make tiles and sell them, but they gave free ones to the school and the hospital because they saw that everything is connected, that we're all one. So there are many, many beautiful examples like that. And if we remember that anarchy is the art of relating as freely as equals, not the waiting till everyone's already capable of it. And that's where our yoga practice fits so nicely with what we could call social action. That spiritual action of coming from the place of depth and inwardness and letting that shine out can support us to be gentle and forgiving with ourselves and each other when we're not relating freely as equals. Because of course that's how we've been raised. We haven't all grown up with the experience of being honored as a complete equal in our lives, you know? And the pain of that takes time to heal. And I'm reading a beautiful book about trauma at the moment. And they've done some studies and found that whether it's the so-called victim or the so-called perpetrator of trauma, it's the same stuff, biochemically, energetically. It's the same pattern gets stuck in the system. And so I don't really see any difference between revolution and healing. And I don't think Hildegard did either. I think that's what she's really beautifully pointing to, is that she didn't need to challenge the structure of the church to be a revolutionary. She, within that structure, found a way to shine and help everybody she connected with shine. She found a home for her service, for healing the sick, for creating beauty, for nurturing community. So she was free from either being, as we said last night, either being with or against. She was herself. We don't need to be limited in any way. Certainly not by any concepts of how the world is, because that's not home, that's the interpreted world. Interpreted world. Maybe we all have that heart's prayer to be free and to know who we are, not our image of ourselves. It's probably we notice that that image is subject to change. You know, when you hear people in their 80s or 90s look in the mirror and they wonder what happened. Who is that? Huh? Who is that? There's a kind of confusion maybe. And I think it's because they know they're not the image in the mirror. That's not who they are. Neither was the teenager when they looked in the mirror, huh? Or, any other age. There's something within us that sees and is seen. And that seems to be eternal. And we connect with that directly through the heart. They often, in yoga, that's called jnana yoga, the path of self-inquiry. And it's often seen as an intellectual path, proper, hard working, thinking really hard to see that you're not who you think you are. But the heart practice is the same and the easier way, and what Ramana Maharshi actually recommended. Go to the source. Let the heart show you, reveal itself, and rest in that. Be at home, not in the interpreted world. Huh? Where we go, huh? We meet so many people in our lives who are unsettled, who aren't at home. They're looking at the world going, oh, huh? And probably we've all done that. Oh, what's going on? Huh? And we don't feel at home, and maybe a bit lost or confused, scared. And when we come home to that place that's beyond interpretation, beyond words, beyond concepts, and we feel our own light, like Hildegard invited us to. And let that light sing through us in whatever words need to come, or whatever actions need to come. Not by trying to be a good activist, or a good whatever category, but by being ourselves. One of our beautiful teachers talks about the mountain of value. She says each of us stands on a mountain of value. Each of us has our own particular experiences that are rich with potential for offerings to the world. And it's not always easy to see it, especially if we're checking out everyone else's mountain and trying to decide which one's better, and then maybe wishing we were up there. Yeah. So I, really never expected to be talking about sacred anarchy. I thought, oh, if I want to be a good, successful yogi, probably I don't need to rock the boat by mentioning all that other stuff. In fact, I think I realized the other day on LinkedIn, I went through and deleted most of my CV. I was like, no, that'll scare people away. And I'm really slow because I didn't notice that all the people who were attracted to my classes were the people who were into all that stuff and who loved it, huh? But I was like, no, better just, So I think I was a bit like Hildegard. I was like, oh, getting the mess. No, I'll just keep quiet. And it, and then it doesn't work. It's that surrendering the terror so the voice can come, so that what's in your mountain of value can shine. It's full of gold, and the world needs it. And your gifts may not be obvious to you. That doesn't mean they're not there. They are, unquestionably. I see the earth, the earth must be, it seems to me, some great soul who took on the tremendous task of incarnating for billions of years to support all of us to have our experience of embodiment and our time together to evolve. And she knows what she's doing. When we each got our invitation to come, it wasn't a mistake. Huh? We were talking last night about the whole lists. Image came to me this morning of like the VIP clubs. We've got to be on the guest list to get in, and how heaven gets presented that way. A lot of people worry: are they going to make the list? Get into the club. Huh? If Earth is a club, which it's not really, but we're all on the list, and we don't have to prove anything to be here and enjoy the party. And we only really, really, really enjoy it when that desire to prove drops away, because it's seen there is nothing to prove or disprove if we're trying hard that direction. And what Hildegard and another thing that Hildegard and the anarchists have in common, in a way, is that the anarchists wanted to see heaven on earth, to live utopia. And Hildegard had an edge because she saw it already. She saw that it's here, that there is no division between heaven and earth. She said once, all of creation is a symphony of the Holy Spirit, which is joy and jubilation. That's what the Spirit is. And we talk about that, having spirit, full of spirit. She saw that everything is singing, that everything has vibration, has energy. And she dedicated her life to nurturing that energy, to nurturing that viriditas, that aliveness. And a philosopher friend of mine, when he was looking at the anarchist values and he saw this freedom and equality, which are often seen as opposites. Well, you can be free means do whatever you want, and equal means fit in. And the anarchists were like, no, both together, same time. And he said, that's vitality. That's real aliveness. That's the spark, the spirit. And Emma Goldman, who I mentioned before, said, yes, if we look at society as the lungs and the individual as the heart, and the heart contains the life essence, and if society works well, it nurtures every heart. And if it's not working well, it doesn't. So the more we can nurture every heart ourselves as social beings, starting with our own. Because if we look at the actual physical heart, it has the job of pumping blood around, circling the whole body, pumping blood for every single cell, every part of the body. Depends on the heart doing a good job and not having days in bed and saying, not today. And it's the perfect servant, huh? Always giving. And how does it do that? It rests between every beat, and also it feeds itself first. So when the oxygen-rich blood comes out, some immediately comes back into the heart to serve those muscles, and then the rest goes round. So after lunch, the heart doesn't switch tactics and go, oh, stomach, you need it more than me, please. You have it, you take it. That would be a very short life. One meal only, right? No, no, it's nurturing itself and then letting that vitality spread. Huh? Or as Emma Goldman put it, it was the lungs, spreading the oxygen around. So they saw that the society is a body, and that there's a greater body than the individual, and the greater body depends on all the individuals. So everything at every level matters. So they were kind of like Hildegard, saying that the sin, if we like, of hierarchy is based on the sin of separation, that confusion that we can divide the world up into neat little boxes and put some on top of the others. Mm-hmm. And that to overcome that, to heal that wound, if you like, is to tune into the place of unity. And as we know from our reading of the Yoga Sutras, one of the interpretations of yoga is the uniting of consciousness in the heart, where it simply rests in itself, where we merge with the oneness that life is. And there's no possibility of separation, no possibility of hierarchy. There's only natural human life. And the anarchists look to nature as a model, like Hildegard does. There's no one micromanaging the rainforest. And it's vibrant and vital and full of life. There's no boss in an ecosystem. But life itself knows what to do. Life itself knows how to live together, how to cooperate, how to share, how to make sure resources flow to where they're needed. Like we've been recently hearing from the scientists about the trees, that they send nutrients to each other through underground networks to make sure everybody's looked after. They don't have food banks because they share. It's only when we have this confusion that all those things come about. I've recently rejoined the Anarchist Studies Network, and I say my research has not been with books lately. It's been with my body and my breath and my mind and the experience of the heart. And we can see our hatha practice as a beautiful embodiment of anarchy, of the bodily experience of honoring all parts. If we live in our mind and decide that the body is just meant to be a servant to the mind and carry it around so the mind can have interesting experiences and think great thoughts, then it's kind of the same as that worker exploitation that touched Emma's heart so strongly. And when we honor the wisdom of the body and honor all the parts and listen to the body deeply, there's a wonderful, joyous experience. Like Hildegard said, when the soul and the body are aligned and flowing together and honoring life, doing what's being called for, if they're answering that heart listening, there's this spontaneous joy that has no cause and no reason, no justification needed. It's what Hildegard called the Holy Spirit. It's joy and jubilation. It's this eruption of light from the heart that then filters through all those filaments and connects with every other node, and the whole universe lights up. Any heart lighting up is lighting up the whole universe. It seems to me that that's the most radical thing we can do, is let ourselves light up. To stop getting in the way of that with, I don't know, all the ways we do. And through kindness with ourselves, through complete forgiveness and gentleness and love of who we are. And to remember that who we are is not our memory of things we've done or things we haven't done. That's the interpreted world. It's not home. Anything that you imagine that you've done wrong, you might like to simply hold yourself in a loving embrace and feel the forgiveness of the whole of creation embracing you. Because that's the nature of creation, to embrace, to hold, and to forgive. To love. It connects our childhood with the universe. It sends the world alight and sparks through our being. Love is what brings the deepest transformation. And sometimes that love seems to express itself as friction to help the armor get thinner, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't need to be divided about division and embrace division as part of the wholeness. There's a quite amazing modern biologist called Bruce Lipton. Some of you may have heard of him. Yeah. And he was looking at stem cells way before we all heard about them, you know. And he observed that the cell seems to have two modes, either protection or growth. And it depended on what environment the cell was in. So if it was in a petri dish with lots of lovely food, and it would just blossom and be vibrant and full of vitality. And if it was in a kind of toxic environment, it would close down and thicken its walls, and it couldn't really blossom. It could survive but not thrive. And one day somehow he had the insight that this applies to the macroorganism as well. And that our mind is an environment. That if we're in our mental environment and the mental environment is characterized by fear, in other words, it's sending the signal to our body that the situation we're in is danger, danger, then our whole system goes into protective mode. And our vitality is kind of, it's saved for later. It's not lost. It's stored for later. And when we are open to seeing everything in life as a blessing, often in tremendous disguise, but if we see the world is here to help us blossom, and all our experience is here as a kindness, to help us find our strength, to help us shine, then that vitality is experienced, that growth. So when we see people in fear, we can hold them in our hearts. If we see people in fear and try to fix it, then we're in protective mode, going, oh, they're afraid. Now I'm starting to feel afraid. I don't want to feel afraid. Make them stop. And that's, of course, that happens. If we manage to switch modes by reconnecting with the heart, by connecting with love itself, and that seeing someone's afraid, then it's okay that they're afraid, because they're, part of the blessed world, the sacred creation. Then we don't need to change them. And when our heart is shining, the love's flowing through the filaments, there's always cracks in armor. We like to think it's foolproof, but the light gets in. So we don't need to worry about all the other nodes and the whole network. And when I was taking in Bruce Lipton's teachings, one of the things that really struck me was how similar he was to Peter Kropotkin, who was a great evolutionary biologist and geographer, I think in the 1800s, maybe early 1900s. And he became a very influential part of the anarchist movement. He's one of the, his books they get re-released all the time. They're like the sacred texts of anarchy. And he wrote a book called Mutual Aid, a key factor of evolution. And he was saying the same, that when we cooperate, that's what allows the vitality. That's what allows the growth. That's what supports evolution. And he heard someone else talking about it who was near the end of their life. They'd kind of come to that, and he picked that up, and he went and he looked at how ecosystems work. He visited lots of societies, including a lot of indigenous societies. So again, we see the teachings coming from the indigenous cultures of how to live in harmony with the world. And then, and for indigenous people, the heart energy is very obvious and straightforward from my experience and from experiences I've heard about or read about. Of course, a lot of indigenous cultures have been deeply traumatized, and there's been a disconnection. But it's very strong and very present, very alert. Even when there's that protective layer kind of going, oh, please no more of that, we've had enough of that. And so I think what we talked about on the first night, or the second night, I don't know. How many weeks have we been here? when the separation of human and nature is allowed to dissolve, and we can live in real human nature, not the confused image. So Emma Goldman again. So what are you, all of you people saying anarchy can't work because of human nature? She's like, what human nature are you talking about? When you study animals in captivity, they're not, that's not how they are. When they're in the wild, when they're in nature, when they're living their lives as themselves, then we see their nature. In our culture, she said, you know, we're not doing that. We're following a clock and, you know, being told we have to do this or else we don't get food. That's not how you find out about human nature. I think if she were around now, she would, you know, she'd be a great yoga teacher. She's saying the same, just the same. And it's under condition, and she actually said the same as the Yoga Sutras, it's under conditions of ease and peace that we see real nature. It's when, and we feel that ease and peace when we see all of nature, including all of humanity, and all of the everything is here to help. Then we can graciously receive life instead of going, oh, I think the challenge, no, no, that was for them, I'm sure. I am down the road, right? I've got to meet a man about a dog and wash my hair for a month or the rest of my life. So she said it's under the conditions of ease and peace that we know who we are, that we see real human nature. And that's what the science of yoga is offering. And that's what the teachings of Hildegard are pointing to. Is to connect with the earth, connect with life, connect with our hearts, connect with each other, connect. And anytime we notice we've disconnected because something gave us a fright and reminded us of something else we're not even sure about, but anyway, we're off. Then we just come back. We just come back home to the uninterpreted world. To not even that, just home. And the more we connect with the heart, the more we honor the body, whether through hatha or, I mean, hatha is a tremendous way, and walks in nature and swimming and laughing and singing, and honor the spirit in whatever way feels just right for you. The more the patterns of fear and misunderstanding melt, and our light shines, our voices sing, our being and our unique gifts can flow to where they're needed without needing to make an identity of being the one who gave. Which is, for those of us who have or have had the habit of people pleasing, that seems to be what that's about, I think. Wanting to be the one who gave and made it okay. And there's a sweetness in that, a beautiful, adorable, wonderful sweetness in that. And there's an even deeper sweetness when the gift is just given and there's nothing needed back. Karma yoga, not needing the smile or the thank you or the, oh, what a great person you are. When the gift just gives itself. and that flows open to all directions. Not always trying to give, and not always trying to receive, but that free flow of energy, that free flow of life. That's the basis of all ecology, all nature, all health. So if we want to live in a society, if we want harmony and balance for our world, then tuning into the harmony and balance within seems to be the only place to start. It's like we were talking about the other night, that the energy container has to be strong enough to receive and hold the energy. And whether that's the individual body finding its inner strength, or the collective body finding its presence, its connection, then more can pour in. Have you ever had a favorite thing that you really wanted to get everyone else to try because you loved it so much you thought it would make them happy if they all had it too?
Definitely. Yeah, of course.
And then we're a bit shocked to discover that was someone else's least favorite thing. How could you not love this? And then they're like, oh, actually, no. In my household, it's coriander. Huh? So if we think of all the different spiritual traditions as different, flavors of ice cream, and if chocolate is someone's thing that they don't even consider that other ice creams could even exist, really. There's only chocolate ice. What are you talking about? Because they've not seen it and they've not been interested. It's fine. Let them eat lots of chocolate and become chocolate. Let them, that sweetness shine through them. And if they get grumpy because you're eating strawberry and seem happy and it's confusing for them, not a problem. Not a problem. And we don't need to try to get everyone to eat strawberry ice cream. Even though we love it so much, it might not make everybody else happy. And if we, like the multi-cone, scoop that. Yeah, as long as we're feeling the sweetness in it and focus in receiving that. Perfect. Huh? Perfect. It's great to be able to enjoy all the flavors. And even if there's a flavor we don't enjoy, but can see what's in it for other people. Like, I've told some people this, but the other day I was meditating in a cave associated with Mary Magdalene on the south coast of Fife. And afterwards I went for a walk along the coastal path and I came to a golf course. And my mind tends to be with Mark Twain on this, that golf is a lovely walk, just completely ruined by a little white ball. Like, why would you do that? My dad's really into it. I was like, okay. Massage therapist, I see shoulder injuries and like that's where my mind goes. But I got to the sign after I'd been meditating, and there's a little sign because people walk past the golf course and have all these, how to do it well, not get hit, and also respect the golfers. And one of the lines is, if someone's lining up for a shot, please keep silent. It's like, oh, that's their worship. That's their spiritual practice, that focus, that ball there, full, I was like, it's their meditation. It's not my flavor, but I see the sweetness now. I didn't see it before. And that's how we get along. Not by pushing our flavor of ice cream, not by complaining about other flavors, but honoring creation is, celebrating unity and diversity. So we're celebrating the unity and the diversity, the sweetness in all the ice cream. the vitality in all the forms, the viriditas in every being, including our mobile phones, including the walls, including the government, including money, including everything. Because there's only one energy appearing as all that we experience. It might have different flavors. There might be some that we really, really, really would just wish didn't even exist. Like my partner is with coriander. He probably would quite happily wipe that out of existence. And I'm the same with grapefruit. Huh? I wouldn't wipe it out. But, you know, whatever it is for you, learning to be at ease, allowing ourselves to be at ease with what is, takes a lot of inner strength and a lot of gentleness. And that's a beautiful combination. Beautiful combination. I think that's what hatha means, isn't it? The balance of strength and gentleness, in a way. Or rather, discovering the strength of gentleness and the gentleness of real strength. Not the show kind, but the real deal. Shall we close with a little om together in the heart? And if we want to have lots of other conversations other times. We can feel the two hands as like when we think there's two different things, humanity and nature, us and them. And if we want to, we can let them come together, either flat together in prayer or one over the other, whichever seems to awaken your heart. And feel the oneness that's here in the heart. That unity that precedes all things. And that exists within all things. And the sound of this oneness, the sacred sound of Om, is a loving invitation to each of us to live here, to live in our real home. And let's listen to the invitation and notice if any part of our being, or maybe our whole being, says yes. Let's breathe together for a single, gentle Om. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, thank you.